Welcome back to my channel. Friends, there is a moment that made millions of people around the world unable to stop crying. A moment that even people who aren't army felt deep in their chests. And that moment happened in Mexico, in front of tens of thousands of people, under the blinding glow of stage lights. A man we have always known to smile, to be strong, to always try to appear just fine when standing on that stage, finally could not hold back his tears. His name is JUNGKOOK, and this is one of the most deeply moving moments in the entire history of K-pop. Welcome! If you are ready to cry along, watch this video until the very end, because I promise you will not regret it. Okay, before we get to the main moment, I want to give you some context first, because without this context, you might not truly understand just how much weight this moment carried. So this was part of Jungkook's solo tour. A tour that arrived at a very specific, very sensitive, and very meaningful time. Why? Because everyone knew this was one of Jungkook's last concerts before he had to enlist in the military. You already know. In South Korea, military service is mandatory for every man. And Jungkook, the magne of BTS, the one we have all watched grow from a shy teenager into an extraordinarily talented young man, had to go. And Mexico? Mexico was one of the final cities on that tour. Friends, Mexican Army is no joke. They are widely known as one of the most passionate and most sincere fan bases in the entire world. They had been waiting years for this moment. They had saved money, prepared themselves, crafted banners and signs filled with an almost overwhelming love. And when that night finally came, when Jungkook stepped onto that stage in Mexico, everyone felt something different. There was a feeling in the air that simply could not be put into words, as if everyone in that room already knew that this was not just any ordinary night. This was a night that would be remembered forever. The concert was nothing short of extraordinary. Jungkook performed with every ounce of energy he had. He sang, he danced, he laughed with ARMY. That smile of his, that golden boy smile, radiated throughout the entire night. But there was one point in the evening that began to shift everything. It came when he sang songs that carried a very deep personal meaning. Songs that were not just songs, but the story of his life. His love for ARMY. His gratitude. His fears. A longing that had not yet happened, but was already being felt. Imagine standing in front of tens of thousands of people who love you sincerely, who scream your name, who cry because of music you created, who wave their blue and purple lights toward you like an ocean of stars. And you know, this might be one of your last nights on that stage for a very, very long time. How would you feel? That is exactly what Jungkook felt that night. And that feeling, he could no longer hide it. One song ended. The crowd screamed. Jungkook stood at the center of the stage. His breathing felt heavy. And the cameras caught something that made millions of people around the world stop breathing for just a moment. Here it is. The moment. Jungkook stood at the center of the stage. The light from the ARMY bombs created an ocean of color before him. And then his eyes began to fill with tears. He tried to smile. He genuinely tried. But there was something stronger than that effort. Something far greater than himself. The first tear fell. Slowly. As if it did not want to break the moment, but simply could not stop itself. The crowd noticed immediately. The cheering softened into something quieter, something gentler. Thousands of people began to cry alongside him, because that is what ARMY does. When their idol cries, their hearts break right along with his. Jungkook raised the microphone. He tried to speak, but the words would not come easily. He swallowed. He blinked several times as if trying to push back the tears, but it was no use. And then he spoke, with a trembling voice, with eyes already full of water. He said to the tens of thousands of ARMY in that room, and to the millions of ARMY around the world watching through the live stream, that he loved them, that they were the reason he was able to stand here. That without ARMY, there is no Jungkook. Every word he said felt like a blade pressed gently against the chest, not because it hurt in a bad way, but because it was too sincere, too real, too deep. And when he tried to finish his words, His voice completely broke. He bowed his head for a moment. His hand covered his face. And that was the moment the world came undone. What happened after that moment? The internet exploded. Within minutes, the clip had spread everywhere. Twitter, or X as it is now called, was immediately flooded with Jungkook's name. Trending #1. Not just in Mexico, not just in Korea. Worldwide, fan reaction videos began pouring in from people watching at home. Girls crying in front of their laptop screens. Mothers who had followed BTS for years sobbing alongside their children. Some people even wrote on Twitter, "I'm not even ARMY, and I have no idea why I'm crying watching this." And that says everything, because Jungkook's tears were not simply the tears of an idol. They were the tears of someone who truly loves what he does, who truly loves the people who support him, who knows that this moment, standing on that stage, singing, looking out at a sea of people who came just for him, was about to come to an end, at least for a while. The most liked comments read something like this: "I was already crying, then I watched this, and somehow I cried even harder. Jungkook, you are not alone. We will always be waiting for you. This isn't goodbye. This is just see you later. I'm not ready. I am genuinely not ready." And the comment that was reposted the most: "Look at how he tries to smile while crying. That is not acting. That is a heart so full of love, it simply has no more room." Visual BTS timeline, enlistment moments, photos of Jungkook from debut to now. Now, I want to take you a little deeper, because to truly understand why this moment was so heavy, we need to look at the bigger picture. Jungkook joined BTS when he was still very young. He grew up right in front of our eyes. From an awkward teenager, one who, by his own admission, almost left Big Hit because he felt he was not talented enough, into one of the finest performers of his generation. For more than a decade, his life has been music and ARMY. The stage has been his home. And now, he has to leave that home for a while. Military service in Korea is not negotiable. It is not a choice. And even though Jungkook, like the other members of BTS, faces it with dignity and responsibility, that does not mean he does not feel it. He feels it very deeply. And Mexico was one of the last moments where he could stand on that stage, feel the extraordinary energy of ARMY, and simply be himself. Jungkook, the performer, the singer, the magne the world loves. There is one more thing worth knowing. Jungkook once said in an interview that the things he fears most are not grand or dramatic. He is most afraid of losing the small moments that matter, losing the routines he loves, losing the feeling of standing on a stage and seeing ARMY right there in front of him. And in Mexico that night, he was probably thinking about all of that. Every small moment he would soon be missing. After his tears had quieted a little, Jungkook did something that made everyone unable to hold back even more. He spoke directly from the heart, not with prepared lines, not with a script, but with words that came on their own from the deepest place inside him. He gave thanks, over and over again, to every single person in that stadium that night, to the ARMY watching from every corner of the world, to the people who had walked alongside him through a journey that was never easy. He said he never forgets where he came from, that every time he feels tired, every time he doubts himself, he thinks of ARMY. And somehow that has always been enough to make him stand back up. He made a promise, and this is the part that made thousands of people in the stadium cry out while crying. He promised that when he returns, he will give everything, more than he has ever given before. That this pause is not an ending, that this is only a comma, not a full stop. And then he did something very simple, but incredibly powerful. He bowed deeply to the entire audience, to every person who had shown up that night, to every ARMY in every part of the world. And that stadium, which had already been filled with crying and cheering, was suddenly overtaken by a sound that is almost impossible to describe if you were not there. The sound of thousands of people crying and screaming someone's name all at once. Love and sadness and pride, all collapsing into a single moment. That was not an ordinary moment. That was one of those moments that will live in the memory of everyone who was there and everyone who watched for the rest of their lives. Friends, I want to close this video with something I feel we all need to sit with for a moment. We often forget that behind all the fame, behind all the grand stages and spotlight, there is a regular human being. Someone who has feelings, who carries fears, who has moments of vulnerability that he hides so well behind the smile we all know and love. JUNGKOOK did not cry in Mexico because he is weak. He cried because he loves with everything he has. He loves his music. He loves his stage. And above all, he loves you, ARMY, who have walked alongside him through a journey that was never simple. Those tears are proof that all of this is real, that the bond between JUNGKOOK and ARMY is not simply a fandom and their idol. It is something far deeper than that. It is a connection forged through years of mutual support, mutual encouragement, and showing up for each other without question. And if you made it to this part, if you watched all the way to the end, I am certain you feel it too. That feeling in your chest that cannot quite be named. Somewhere between sadness and warmth. Between loss and love. JUNGKOOK will come back. And when he does, he will stand on that stage again. Stronger. More mature. With the same smile we have always loved. Until that day comes, we wait. Together. If this video made you cry, or if you have a favorite moment from the Mexico concert, write it in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you have not subscribed yet, please help this channel grow by hitting the subscribe button and turning on the bell notification. Because we will keep capturing these moments that matter. For JUNGKOOK. For ARMY. See you in the next video. And remember, Purple You, forever and always. Purple Heart.